Shedeur Sanders was doomed before the whistle blew. While being a fifth-round pick and the supposed future of the franchise, the Browns had given him zero time with the first-team offense. Not during camp, not in meetings, not even in scout reps. So when the Ravens game forced Sanders into action, it wasn't about performance, it was about survival. The result? Predictably rough. But what shocked analysts wasn't the outcome, it was the audacity of the setup.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
Rex Ryan, once a vocal critic, now called it what it was: sabotage. This wasn't just poor planning. It was the kind of calculated indifference that derails careers. When an organization drafts a quarterback but never integrates him, it tells you everything about its culture. The Browns didn't just mishandle a game plan, they mismanaged an asset. And in the NFL, nothing wastes talent faster than leadership that refuses to prepare its own future. Sanders' struggles weren't personal failings. They were systemic ones. And the system needs to answer for it. Rex Ryan went from dragging Shedeur Sanders to defending him fast. 1 minute, he's tearing down a rookie quarterback on national TV, and the next, he's turning his anger on the Cleveland Browns organization. Why? Because what happened during that Ravens game wasn't just about poor play. It was about betrayal. From the top down. It started with criticism. Rex Ryan didn't hold back. He questioned Sanders' readiness, his ability to lead, his fit in the NFL. He echoed what many people were thinking. Why was Sanders even on the field? Then the facts came out. And they changed everything. Turns out, Sanders was never given a real shot. He hadn't taken a single practice rep with the starting offense. Not in training camp. Not in walkthroughs. Not even with the scout team. The first time the offensive line heard his voice, literally the first time, was during a live NFL game against the Baltimore Ravens. One of the toughest, fastest, most aggressive defenses in the league. So now the question flipped. Not why was Sanders struggling, but how was this even allowed to happen? And that's when Rex Ryan pulled a complete 180. Because once he saw the context, it was clear. This wasn't about Shedeur Sanders being unprepared. It was about the Browns making sure he stayed unprepared. The organization had failed him. Completely. Cleveland traded up to draft him. That means they believed in his talent. They saw enough to make a move for him. But once he got there, they never gave him a chance. No integration into the offense. No chemistry with the starters. No support system. They just stuck him on the bench and waited until they had no other choice, and then threw him into a high-stakes division game. That's not player development. That's sabotage. Rex Ryan wasn't wrong about Sanders not looking ready. He was wrong about why he didn't look ready. Because Sanders wasn't being groomed. He was being sidelined, then shoved into the spotlight to sink or swim. And this is exactly what's broken about how some NFL teams handle young talent. It's not that Shedeur doesn't have what it takes. It's that Cleveland never gave him a real shot to show it. They let ego, politics, and dysfunction dictate how they handled their own investment. They drafted a high-profile rookie, then let him collect dust, until desperation forced their hand. And then, when the predictable disaster unfolded on the field, they just stood back and let the blame land on the rookie. But that backfired. Because once people started digging, the truth came out fast, and it was ugly. The offensive line had never heard his cadence. That's not just a detail. That's a critical part of any quarterback's rhythm with the line. Without that connection, false starts happen. Blocking schemes fall apart. Timing collapses. And it's not on the rookie. It's on the staff who failed to set him up. And it wasn't just about the technical aspects. The body language on the field said a lot. While fans were excited to see what Shedeur could do, his teammates looked flat. There was no fire, no protection, no signs that the locker room had rallied around him. That kind of energy disconnect doesn't happen in a healthy team culture. It happens when leadership fails to build one. And it's not just Cleveland. This is happening across the league. Young talent being drafted into situations where the culture is broken, The plan is unclear, and the support is non-existent. Quarterbacks with real upside get buried because the people above them don't have the patience or the vision to actually develop them. That Ravens game was a snapshot of everything wrong with that system. Sanders didn't fail because he lacked talent. He failed because the organization never gave him the reps, the coaching, or the support to succeed. And still, he didn't melt down. He didn't point fingers. He didn't deflect. He stayed composed. He took the hits. He tried to run the plays. He showed more maturity than a lot of people expected, especially given how blindsided he was by the situation. That's what changed Rex Ryan's mind. Not just the organizational failures, but Shedeur's response to them. It takes real mental toughness to walk into that storm and hold it together. He may not have thrown for 300 yards, but he showed something more important: resilience. And now, the pressure's on Cleveland. Because if they're going to keep Shedeur Sanders on the roster, let alone as a potential future starter, they have to make a decision. Either they start building him up the way a real NFL quarterback deserves, or they need to admit they were never serious about his development in the first place. The current approach, draft him, bench him, ignore him, then throw him into a game cold, isn't just unsustainable. It's damaging to his confidence, to the locker room, and to the team's reputation. What's the plan here? If Sanders is your guy, then treat him like it. Give him the first-team practice reps. Let him build chemistry with the offense. Teach him protections. Game plan around his strengths. Let him grow. But if you're just keeping him on the roster as a panic button or a PR move, then be honest about that. Don't keep dangling the idea of development while actively stalling it. Because what happened in that Ravens game isn't something you walk away from without accountability. And this isn't about being soft on rookies. This is about being fair. If you want to see what a quarterback can do, give him the tools to succeed. That's not coddling. That's just smart football. Other teams do it. The ones who win consistently, they build their young quarterbacks the right way. Representatives' patience. Investment. That's what development looks like. And that's what Sanders needs. Because this isn't just about one game. It's about the trajectory of a career. You only get one shot at a rookie season. Blow it, and it's hard to undo the damage. Not because the player can't grow, but because the league starts writing them off. We've seen this story too many times before. Talented players thrown into chaos, then discarded when they don't instantly shine. But this one's different. Because Rex Ryan, who had every opportunity to double down on his criticism, didn't. He saw what the Browns had done, and he called it out, loudly. And when someone like Rex Ryan changes the narrative, the league listens. Now it's Cleveland's turn to respond. Are they going to take responsibility and make real changes? Or are they going to keep letting dysfunction rule the day? Either way, the spotlight is on. And if they mess this up again, the damage won't just hit Sanders. It'll hit every future player who looks at Cleveland and wonders, am I next? If you've been following this mess and feel like teams need to start taking accountability for how they handle their rookies, speak up in the comments. Like this video if you're tired of watching talent get wasted. And hit that subscribe button. Because with the way this league is run, there's always another meltdown around the corner. What we just saw wasn't a one-off mistake. It was a symptom of a much deeper problem. The kind of organizational rut that doesn't show up on the stat sheet, but plays out on the field every single week. Let's not kid ourselves. You don't get to a moment like this by accident. Shedeur Sanders being thrown into a game completely unprepared? That doesn't happen unless everyone drops the ball. Coaching, management, culture. Every layer of the Browns' operation had to fail for this situation to unfold the way it did. And what's worse, this wasn't even a low-stakes game. It was against the Baltimore Ravens, a team known for aggressive defense, fast linebackers, relentless pressure. And they tossed a rookie into that mess with no reps, no prep, and no rhythm with the starters? That's not just risky. It's reckless. There's no universe where that decision makes football sense. But here's the thing, it wasn't about football. It was about control, about appearances, about ego. The Browns needed a body to fill in, and Shedeur was available. So they used him. Not as a developing player. Not as a strategic asset. As a placeholder. And now he's supposed to eat the blame? No. That's not how this works. This is what Rex Ryan finally understood. That what looked like a poor performance from Sanders was actually a reflection of a dysfunctional system. A kid with no practice time was suddenly expected to lead a full-speed offense against one of the best defenses in football. And when it predictably collapsed, people like Rex were ready to go in, until they realized what had really happened. Let's talk about that locker room, too. Because the vibe was off from the first snap. Fans were hyped. You could feel it on social media. The excitement, the curiosity, the let's see what he can do energy. But on the field? Nothing. No urgency. No support. The team played like they were walking through a preseason scrimmage. That's a culture issue. You don't get that kind of flat energy unless players already know what the coaches aren't saying. That this guy wasn't really part of the plan. That he wasn't prepared. That he wasn't expected to succeed. So why rally around him? That right there? That's toxic. In any good locker room, when a young quarterback steps up, especially under tough circumstances, the team lifts him up. They block harder. They communicate more. They give him confidence. But in Cleveland, there was separation. And it says a lot. It says Shedeur Sanders was on an island before the ball was even snapped. And it says the Browns haven't just failed to build a development system. They failed to build a team identity that values young talent. And this goes beyond just one player. This is about how organizations treat their investments. Because a draft pick isn't just a name on a jersey. It's a commitment to develop, to support, to coach, to build a real future. But when that future is being decided by ego instead of development, it gets wasted. And let's not pretend this is a new trend for Cleveland. This is a franchise that has burned through quarterbacks like it's a party trick. Draft one, hype them up, leave them unsupported, toss them into chaos, and then move on when they don't produce instant magic. It's not a strategy. It's a cycle. And Sanders is just the latest name getting dragged through it. Except this time, it didn't stay quiet. This time, someone like Rex Ryan, who normally isn't in the business of defending young quarterbacks, stood up and said, "No, this isn't on him." Because even for someone who spent years inside NFL locker rooms and coaching meetings, what happened to Sanders stood out. It wasn't just unprofessional. It was negligent. And this negligence has a cost. Not just in games lost, but in careers derailed. You only get so many chances in this league. Once you're labeled, that's it. Doesn't matter what actually happened. The perception sticks. And unless someone's willing to step in and change the narrative, players like Sanders get boxed in before they ever get a fair shot. Thankfully, the truth is out there now. People know what happened. They saw the game. They've heard the breakdowns. And they understand that Sanders wasn't just thrown in, he was thrown away. So what now? The Browns have two options. They can keep pretending this never happened, act like the experiment failed, bench Sanders again, and move on to whatever's next. Or they can own it. They can admit that they failed him, that they didn't prepare him, that they let politics and panic dictate decisions that should have been grounded in football logic. And then they can start over. Give him the reps. Let him work with a starting offense in practice. Build a game plan around what he does well. Communicate a clear message to the team that this is their quarterback, and they're going to back him. That's what real organizations do. They course correct. They don't bury mistakes. They learn from them. Because right now, Shedeur Sanders doesn't need perfection. He needs preparation. He needs a shot. A real one. Not some last-minute, plug-and-play chaos scenario that sets him up to fail. He's already proven he can handle adversity. Now, let's see what he can do with support. And it's not just about him. This entire episode shines a light on something bigger. The NFL's player development problem. So many teams get caught up in the power dynamics, front office pride, coaching staff politics, internal turf wars, that they forget the point. The point is to build players, to grow them, to invest in them. And when that gets lost, moments like this happen. Rookie quarterbacks get blindsided. Fans get misled. And careers get shortened not by lack of talent, but by lack of structure. What happened to Shedeur Sanders should be a turning point. A wake-up call not just for Cleveland, but for every team in the league. Because behind every rookie jersey is a human being, a competitor, a leader, someone trying to earn their place. And if the people in charge can't get out of their own way long enough to support that, then they don't deserve the talent they draft. To the Browns, if you're serious about building a future, act like it. And to fans watching this unfold, speak up. Demand better. Your team's future depends on how they treat the people trying to carry it. And the scary part? They might not even realize it. Because this isn't just about being a bad team. This is about being a careless team. A team that can't or won't acknowledge when its decisions are actively hurting the very players it claims to believe in. It's not about losing games. Every franchise loses games. It's about losing people, losing potential, and doing it with a shrug. What Cleveland did to Shedeur Sanders wasn't a misstep in game planning. It was a total collapse in leadership. From the front office to the coaching staff to the practice field, there was no vision, no cohesion, no support, just a glaring disconnect between drafting a quarterback and actually preparing him to play quarterback. Let's say it again. They traded up to draft this guy. That means they spent assets, resources on Shedeur Sanders. In theory, they wanted him. They saw something in him that was worth moving up for. But once the deal was done, the plan evaporated. Instead of grooming him with reps and coaching, they stuck him on the back shelf. And when the team needed someone to fill in, they dusted him off, threw him into one of the toughest games on the schedule, and told him to go be ready. That's not development. That's exploitation. And then to sit back and let the media speculate about whether or not he's NFL ready? Of course he didn't look ready. Because Cleveland never gave him the tools to become ready. The game plan wasn't designed for him. The offense didn't trust him. The players around him didn't have timing with him. He was set up to fail. And that's why this entire situation feels so avoidable. Because if the Browns had just done the bare minimum to prepare their rookie quarterback, none of this would have happened. If they'd given him some first-team snaps in practice, if they'd installed a package tailored to his strengths, if they'd built up his confidence over weeks instead of hours. But they didn't. They threw a rookie into the fire without flint, without fuel, and somehow expected a spark. It's no surprise that the moment it went sideways, critics like Rex Ryan initially did what they always do: blame the quarterback. That's the easiest move. It's the one people are used to. It fits the narrative. Quarterback doesn't produce? Must be on him. But this time, something snapped. The deeper people looked, the more obvious it became. The Browns hadn't just mishandled this. They'd completely fumbled the fundamentals of team management. And the result? A nationally televised embarrassment, not for Sanders, but for the franchise. The film tells the story. You can see the lack of communication. You can see the hesitation in the offensive line, unsure when to move. You can see the breakdowns in protection, the missed routes, the confusion at the line of scrimmage. All of it screams one thing: no preparation. And yet through all of that, Shedeur didn't melt down. He stayed in the pocket. He tried to process. He kept fighting, even when everything around him was breaking. That tells you something. That tells you he has the intangibles, the poise, the toughness, the willpower. All the things you can't teach. Now imagine, seriously imagine, what he could do with a team that actually believed in him. Because what's missing here isn't talent. It's support. And in the NFL, support is everything. It's not just about calling the right plays. It's about building the right environment, where a young player knows his coaches have his back, where the offensive line knows how he thinks, where the playbook bends to his skill set. That's what good organizations do. Look at the successful teams across the league. They invest in their quarterbacks. They don't just hand them a jersey and a headset and call it a day. They build structure. They teach. They adjust. They let rookies learn on the practice field instead of the battlefield. Cleveland? They skipped every step of that process and acted shocked when the result was chaos. And it's not just shameful, it's dangerous. This isn't a video game. These are real players, real hits, real injuries. When you send someone out there unprepared, you're not just risking a bad stat line. You're risking his future. If anything had gone wrong, if Sanders had taken the wrong kind of hit, if something had broken down physically, we wouldn't be talking about bad coaching. We'd be talking about career-threatening damage. That's how serious this is. And the most insulting part? Nobody in the organization has stood up and taken responsibility. No one has said, yeah, that was on us. Instead, they've let the moment pass. Let the narrative dangle. Let people speculate about Sanders' ability without ever correcting the record. That silence is deafening. It tells you everything about where their priorities are. Because if they really cared about their rookie, they'd be doing damage control. They'd be defending him. They'd be explaining what went wrong. But nope. Nothing. And that's why fans are angry. Not just because their team is losing, but because the people in charge don't seem to care about the development of their own talent. This isn't just bad football. It's bad leadership. And for Shedeur Sanders, the road ahead is clear. Either Cleveland wakes up and starts doing right by him, or he needs to find a team that will. Because the truth is, he can succeed in this league. He has the tools. He has the brain. He has the presence. But he'll never be able to prove that if he's trapped in a system that refuses to help him grow. It's not enough to say next man up and toss a rookie onto the field. You have to build that man up. Every rep, every meeting, every adjustment. That's how quarterbacks develop. That's how careers are made. And right now, all Cleveland is making is excuses. So what comes next? They could easily write him off. Say he's not ready. Use the game film as evidence and move on. Or they could face the truth. Admit they handled this poorly. Apologize to their fans. Start giving Sanders the reps he should have had weeks ago. Build a plan around him. Commit. Because if they don't, this story ends the same way all the others have. Another young quarterback. Another wasted opportunity. Another team wondering why they can't seem to keep talent in the building. And that's the tragedy of it all. Not just what happened, but how common it is. So if you're sitting there wondering why this feels so familiar, it's because it is. How many other players have been sent down this same path? Drafted with hype, buried by dysfunction, forgotten when they didn't deliver instant success. It keeps happening, and it keeps costing the league its best potential. If anything good can come out of this mess, it's that maybe teams will start to pay attention. Maybe they'll realize that drafting talent is only the first step. That what matters more is what you do after. That development is a choice, a culture, a responsibility. And maybe, just maybe, the next Shedeur Sanders won't have to learn that lesson the hard way. Drop your thoughts below. Do you think Sanders can still turn it around in Cleveland? Do you think the Browns are capable of doing anything right at this point? Let's talk about it. Like if you're tired of watching teams fumble their own future, and hit subscribe so you're here the next time another franchise self-destructs before halftime. Because let's be honest, we all know it's coming.